Hello and welcome to Acadec Daily Music Theory number 3. Today we're going to talk about accidentals and the chromatic scale. My name is Ben Varner. I'm on the Pewaukee High School Academic Decathlon team in the class of 2025. So just to review a little bit, we have our G clef and our F clef, the treble and bass clefs. And we also have our C clefs, which are also known as the alto clef when it's centered in the middle, and the tenor clef when it's centered on the fourth line. And the line is the middle C. And here is from the Acadec guide, we have the treble clef, the bass clef, the alto clef, and the tenor clef. Not making it up. And it's often valuable to think of the clefs on an infinite staff. Imagine lines going up and down infinitely. And what's happening is that the clef is telling you where on these infinite lines you're resting. So the bass clef tells you that F3 is this line, and then the C clef tells you that middle C, C4, is the line it passes through. And the G clef tells you that the G4 is the line it passes through. And we can see this being useful when we realize that we used to move around the clefs a lot more than we do today. For example, the C clef, we don't have just the tenor clef and the alto clef. There's also such thing as the mezzo-soprano clef, which is almost like the tenor clef but moving it down. And the soprano clef, where the middle C is on the first line. So these types of clefs were a lot more movable than they used to be. And in fact, we don't use them today. And we used to be able to move around all of the clefs, including the G and F clefs. So the G clef could be moved around, and this is called the French violin clef, where the G is the bottom line. And then the treble clef, that's one you should know. The soprano clef, where the middle C is the bottom line. The mezzo-soprano clef, we already looked at these. Alto and tenor, you need to know. And then the baritone clef is either the C clef on the fifth line, the top line, or the bass clef centered on the middle line. And these are actually exactly the same, because if we look, this is middle C, so then the space here is B4, and then B3, and then A3, G3, and then F3 on the middle. So these two are exactly the same, even though they have different symbols. And then the bass clef, which we still use today, and then the sub-bass clef, which is even lower, and then it looks higher, but this will let you reach lower notes on the staff, which will mean you need to use less ledger lines when writing low music. And again, the only ones you need to know are the treble clef, the alto clef, the tenor clef, and the bass clef. So another bit more review. We go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We loop back around to A. Going up the alphabet is higher and down the alphabet is lower. However, we can also represent the notes on the piano. So this is also really good to remember. We have sets of 2 black keys next to each other and sets of 3 black keys next to each other. What you should remember is that C, the note C, is to the left of the 2. And I've also heard that people say that D is in the doghouse between the 2 black keys. And then from the C, we go right to go up, C, D, E, F, G, A, and then we go left to go back down, E, D, C, B, A, G, etc. And you might be wondering, what are the black keys then? And we'll talk about that in a second. So we need to be introduced first to the idea of the notes in between the notes. So in between C and D, we have the note C sharp, also known as D flat. And this sign here, the little hashtag looking thing, the pound sign, is called a sharp sign, C sharp. And then this sign here, which looks kind of like a B, but a little bit pointier than a lowercase b, is called a flat sign. And what happens is that sharps make a note higher and flats make a note lower. And these sharps and flats are called accidentals. When it changes the pitch of a note, either by moving up or down, that's called an accidental. And these notes are actually the same exact note. If I play on an instrument a C sharp and a D flat, they're going to sound exactly the same, even though they have different note names. And when this happens, we call them enharmonic. If I need to differentiate between a C sharp and just a normal C, we'll use a sign called a natural. And this is still an accidental, the natural. So C natural And then if I need to differentiate between D flat and normal D, I'll use a D natural. So really, our sequence of notes looks more like this. We have A, and then A sharp or B flat. Remember, they're the same thing, they're enharmonic. B, C, and then C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, F, F sharp or G flat, G, G sharp or A flat, A, and then it repeats. This is called the chromatic scale, and the distance between a note and the note next to it is a half step, and we'll talk a little bit more about what steps are in the next video. You might notice that there are no notes between B and C, and there are no notes between E and F. And we can look at the piano to actually figure out why. Remember, we had our 2 black keys and then our 3 black keys. And between the E and the F, there is no black key. So that means that between E and F, there must only be a half step. There's a half step between C and C sharp, between C sharp and D, E flat and E, G and A flat, but only a single half step between B and C and E and F. So those you'll just need to remember. And one thing you could do, you can use any sort of mnemonic to remember, but one of them might be B-Cef, B-C-E-F, B-Cef. So here is the chromatic scale written out on the staff, on the grand staff. So here we have a C sharp down here, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. There's no note between B and C, as you can see. It goes all the way up, and then we have middle C, C4, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. No note between E and F, E, F, F sharp, G, etc. And this is what it looks like. And notice that the little markers, the accidentals, go before the note when it's written out on there. And the simple reason is that when you're reading music, you need to know whether it's sharp or flat or natural before you play the note, right? Not after you play the note. Because if you figure out that it's supposed to be sharp after you play it or sing it or whatever, it's going to be too late, right? So that's why we put the sharp sign before the note in music. But when we're writing it out, we put it after, because we say the flat or the sharp or the natural after the note when we're reading it out loud. So here's what a chromatic scale sounds like, and this is played on a bassoon from Wikimedia. Actually, wait, that might not have gone through. So that's what a chromatic scale sounds like, and it plays all of the notes in between. It's called chromatic, chromatic meaning colorful, because it's very colorful, because you have all of the notes, even the ones that we wouldn't normally use in a specific context. Okay, thank you for listening along. This has been Music Theory number 3. We talked about accidentals and the chromatic scale.